Are we about to get our first look at the PS5 Slim? Avengers is back in the news, we've got a brand new graphical showcase for the PS5, and here are all the leaked PS Plus games for October. So Marvel's Avengers is the game that simply will not die. Every time it comes up in the news, it's usually for the Steam numbers dropping below 500 people or something like that, or they're adding new content to the game that people will finish in a weekend and then sit there scratching their heads wondering what they're supposed to do with their fully kitted out Iron Man that they've been working on for over a year. Now, to be fair to Avengers, the War for Wakanda expansion was apparently very good. It added in a ton of new enemies, it added in new villain sectors, it added a new map to run around in. The Wakanda that they built out apparently is very cool. I heard the story in it is also pretty sweet, even though it's pretty short. But like I just mentioned, right when people finished that content in about the span of a weekend, they went back to grinding out a fully kitted character, only to sit there saying, what do I do with it? Now, they say that there's a raid coming to the game, which we don't know what that's going to be. And if you remember, when the game came out, they were promising a raid, which was going to be called the AIM Cloning Lab, and that is still not out, and they refuse to mention it. So I would not put all my cards on them actually releasing this raid in the time frame that they say they are, because if you look at Crystal Dynamics' track record with this game, the stuff they say is going to come to it, and then the stuff that actually comes to it in the time amount that they give is like totally out of whack. Honestly, when you look at this game, I feel like it's coming up on its last chance moment with obviously the Spider-Man DLC, which is exclusive to us PS5 players. Now, everyone's been kind of wondering what's going to go on with Spider-Man. Is it going to be the Insomniac Spider-Man? Is he going to have story content? Like, what's his gameplay going to be like? Because if you look at how Avengers plays, it actually keeps the camera pretty close. All four characters have to kind of stay within proximity to each other. You're in big open areas, and I think there's only one actual city map in the game. So how is Spider-Man, you know, a guy who's basically built on traversal freedom and being able to swing around wherever you want, going to fit into this scenario? Now, the reason we have all these questions, of course, is because Crystal Dynamics refuses to talk about the character, but they did reveal when he does come to the game, he's going to come along with his own story content, which honestly, like, I'm a PS5 player. This game is the best on PS5, I think, mainly because you're getting all this extra content. The next gen upgrade was really good, except for the whole save transfer thing. Like, I get that, but if I was on another platform and I heard that the story content that Spider-Man is getting is actually going to advance the plot of the game that I potentially sunk like 100 hours into, I'd be pretty pissed off, and I feel like rightfully so. But to be fair again to Crystal Dynamics and Sony, they were very upfront from the very beginning that Spider-Man is an exclusive character on the PS5 version of this game, to the point where if you bought a disc copy, they had a little Spider-Man sticker on there that said, hey, you're getting Spider-Man exclusivity on the PS5. So honestly, like, I don't know, you can make an argument either way over who has the right to be mad here. Now, coming into the recording of this video, I was going to say that this game's last chance is basically Avengers on PS5, because I feel like the other systems are just going to fall by the wayside, because if you look at the Steam numbers on PC, they're extremely low, and I'm not sure how many people are playing on Xbox, but a new wrench was thrown into the mix because Avengers is coming to Game Pass on Windows 10 and on Xbox later this month, which is absolutely crazy because they have some sort of deal with Sony, and I guess it was only for a year because the dates line up, right? Where it's a year out from Avengers release date, so they can put it on Game Pass, and I guarantee you Square Enix just took a big lump sum of cash for that because they lost like $150 million on Avengers, and that was when the game came out. So it's been like a year, they've been developing new content for it for a year. That number of money that they lost has probably skyrocketed since, you know, this game's been on sale for like $9.99 multiple times. There's no way they're making any money back on the actual game sales. Just my top level view on all this, I am really disappointed and really frustrated with the Avengers game as a whole, because if you look at the property they had, the Avengers, the biggest IP in the entire world, hands down. Like, I don't even think you can argue that right now, that the Avengers are the most like important characters to people right now. How do you screw that up? It is so easy to just say, all right, we've got the Avengers, we want to make a looter shooter game, what are we going to look at? Oh, the biggest one in the world, Destiny. We're going to copy that. But then when the game is coming out, you have people at Crystal Dynamics saying, oh, we purposely never looked at Destiny when we were making this game. Well, now here we are a year out from the game's release, and maybe you should have looked at Destiny to see how to make a looter shooter, because apparently Bungie is the only company who can make one of these games that sticks around for more than 6 months. I don't really get it. And I'm definitely not the game itself, because I played it, I beat it, I got a character all the way up to their max power level, which is Captain America. These characters all play great. They have awesome skins in the game. I'm not even gonna knock them for making their money selling skins, because all the extra content like the 2 Hawkeyes and Black Panther were free. And if you ask me what I want for free, skins or content, I'm always gonna go with content. And you know what? That's fine. But yeah, Crystal Dynamics is promising us we'll get Spider-Man by the end of the year, and he'll have story content to come along with them, but just based on their track record, I would take that with a huge grain of salt. So every time I talk about Gran Turismo 7, I say that it's going to be a graphical showcase for the PlayStation 5, but we got a surprise entry here in the racing simulator arena. Is it an arena? Track. In the racing simulator track, we've got a new racer, because there's this game called Ride 4, which actually launched on PS4 back in 2020, that's getting a PS5 upgrade, and we've seen some gameplay from it, and it honestly looks like real life. And I don't want to use that term because I know it's like hyperbolic and blah, blah, blah. No, I watched this video, and you should watch this video, and I want you to go in the comments and let me know if you think this looks like real life, because I'm very confident that a lot of you are going to say, yes, it looks like real life. And if it looks like real life to you, let me know by subscribing and setting your notifications to all. So when I saw this video, I was obviously a little bit skeptical because it really looks like someone wearing a GoPro, and I looked up more gameplay from this game, and yeah, it's basically a perfect storm of all of the effects that they can take advantage of with the PS5 coming together to make it look very real. You've got really high resolution textures, you've got rain slicked roads, you've got weather effects going on that all mask the video gaminess of this game. And really, the timing couldn't be better, because Gran Turismo 7 is coming off a lot of not great news, on top of the fact that it's also coming to PS4, which is disappointing people. It just came out that when you're actually in races, you're not going to be able to use ray tracing on the PS5. And really, I just don't get that, especially since it's also coming to PS4. Like, ray tracing on the PS5 would be a great selling point for that native version of the game that's going to cost $10 more. And I'm sure they'll have some other upgrades in there to the graphics or something like that, but like, still, ray tracing should be a staple, at least having a mode, right? Like, I could play Gran Turismo 7 just fine at 30 FPS as long as I knew I was getting ray tracing, even if they had to knock the resolution down to 1080p or 1440p. Like, there's a lot of ways in which I think they could do this, and they're just choosing not to. And that's a situation where maybe the PS4 version is holding back the PS5 version, and you guys know I don't like that. So because all these articles showing off this gameplay weren't very clear on it, I did a lot of digging, and I found out that this next gen version is available now. Now, on their website, they say that the free upgrade from the PS4 to the PS5 version ended on August 31st. So if you don't have this game, I would just buy the PS5 native version just to be safe, because as you can tell, the information around Ride 4 is extremely wishy-washy. And also, for what it's worth, I looked, and this game actually does seem to have pretty good reviews. Like, it's not just good graphics, it actually plays well. So if you're looking for a Gran Turismo style motorcycle racing game, Ride 4 might be your best option. It is your best option, because I don't think this is like a massive genre on the PS5 quite yet. So if you're looking for one of those games, Ride 4 has you covered. So we just recently got the Last of Us Day big announcement type thing that they were kind of teasing, kind of not teasing, but making us think that maybe we might finally see the factions mode for The Last of Us Part 2 that's going to be expanded into its own game. And while we did get a letter that said, yep, we're working on that, we're gonna wait till show it off till it's ready, we also got our first look at the HBO show for The Last of Us. Now, I go back and forth on this show. Obviously, it's the people who made the Chernobyl show for HBO, which was incredible. If you guys haven't seen it, you might want to check it out. I highly recommend it, and I think that's good. And also, you know, they got Pedro Pascal to play Joel, which I think was great casting. But then I heard that the story in this is just a one-to-one adaptation with minor changes from the first game, and that's kind of where my interest level dropped off a bit, because I feel like the game is good enough to stand on its own and have its own story be its own story, and there's a huge gap of time from the intro to The Last of Us Part 1 to the part where it picks up with Joel meeting Ellie. Like, there's a decades-long gap which could very easily be explored in an HBO show that would be supplementary to this game universe, and also it could be standalone, and that would serve really well to get people interested in going and buying a PS4 or PS5 and playing The Last of Us. Like, I like this One Sony initiative because it shows that they're working together, they're making cool movies and cool TV shows out of their biggest properties, but I feel like they got to take it one step further and really make this stuff synergize, right? Like, just making an adaptation of The Last of Us Part 1 is a waste of time and energy, and B, a good way to get people to directly compare it to the game and then give the show negative press every single week because they're just going to keep saying, yeah, it's not as good as the game. Everyone should play the game. Everyone go play the Last of Us game because it's so much better. Like, the show could be perfect, and I still think people will sit there being like, the game's better. And also, I don't know if this is a limited series or they want to have it continue into multiple seasons. Like, where does this go from where they're starting? You've got The Last of Us Part 1 story, but then you've got a little bit of a gap of time that you could also do between 1 and 2. Are they going to cover that time period? Are they going to go back and cover that gap in the first game? Like, I don't know what's going to happen with this, but starting out with the first game story, I feel like is just one notch against it that it really doesn't need. I don't know what you could add to the first game story to make it better. And I always see whenever you have an adaptation of a game or an anime or something like that, these creators, they always come out really confident and say, yup, I've got the brain power, I've got the ideas, I'm gonna improve it. And how many times has that actually happened? I don't wanna say zero because the Sonic the Hedgehog movie exists, but it's a very low percentage of times where this works out. Well, October is just a couple days away, so you know what that means. It's time to get the PS Plus games. And I just want to point out, this is the second month in a row where Sony's been coming in hot with these game announcements. But we waited and we actually got some good games coming. So this first one's kind of funny because people were predicting it would be the PS Plus game based off the fact that on other platforms you could just pre-order it, but on PlayStation it always just said coming soon. And that ended up being a really good prediction because that's the big headlining game of October. Now, Hell Let Loose, if you haven't heard of it, it's been on PC for a while now in early access. It just kind of came out of its early access stage into 1.0, but what it is a World War II simulator, a lot like Battlefield, but it's made by a smaller indie team and it has a lot of the classic Battlefield elements that people really missed in Battlefield 4, Battlefield 1, and Battlefield 5. I've actually played a ton of this game and it's extremely hardcore. The guns behave pretty realistically. The maps are absolutely massive. It has a lot of those classic Battlefield moments you really love, and also it has an awesome Normandy map, like probably the best Normandy map in any multiplayer shooter ever. I really like it. It feels very historically accurate. So if you were missing that in Battlefield 5, this is probably a game to at least add to your collection to download when you have time. The next game is even more exciting to me though, and it's Mortal Kombat X. Now it's not the ultimate like combat collection or whatever they called that version of the game. It's just the base game, but the DLC for this one is very cheap now and it goes on sale all the time. So if you want to upgrade to the full package, you can easily do that by getting the base game for free on PS Plus. Now I played Mortal Kombat, the reboot, which is Mortal Kombat 9, and this one, Mortal Kombat X, and then Mortal Kombat 11. Yes, they have a very weird naming scheme for that trilogy in like sequential order back to back. And I gotta say, as far as the story goes, Mortal Kombat 11 was easily my favorite, but as far as the characters go, Mortal Kombat X has all of them beat. Now Mortal Kombat 9 had Freddy. Unfortunately, it was the remake Freddy, who is easily, like, indefensibly the worst Freddy ever made for any of these movies. But then in Mortal Kombat X, you got a bounce back with awesome horror characters. You had Alien, you had Predator, you had Jason Voorhees, you had Leatherface. It was kind of like a mini horror fighting game, which is funny because that's what everyone wants NetherRealm to make. Like, you've had everyone except Michael Myers in your game. Just put them all together in one game and make a super gory, violent horror fighter. It would sell like gangbusters, man. I would buy it. I'd buy 2 copies just to like tell them, yeah, I want more horror fighting games. But yeah, I'll get back on track here. You should definitely download Mortal Kombat X as well as Hell Let Loose. This is a month where I'd actually download all the games if I didn't already own them, because the third option you're getting is 2K21 PGA Tour, which, yeah, I know, isn't that weird? I don't love sports, but golf is one of the only ones I do like. I actively play it. I think the games are pretty good. I'm glad we're getting a renaissance of these golf sports games, but this 2K21 golf game is actually pretty decent. You know, like, it plays like a more advanced Mario Golf. You've got the skate style, like thumbstick swinging, which I think is pretty cool. There's a bunch of courses in it. You've got a character creator. It's just a very basic, relaxing golf simulator. So if you're into that, maybe check this one out as well. And remember, before these games go on the PlayStation Store on PS Plus, make sure you at least add the September games to your account, because you'll never know when you want to play them, even if you don't right now. Also, you paid for it, so why not get your money's worth? And remember, we keep up with all the games coming and going from PlayStation Plus on top of game sales. So if you want to keep on top of that, make sure you're subscribed and have your notifications set to all. So even though it feels like every other week we're hearing a different story on how available PS5s are going to get throughout the end of the year, it looks like things are getting just a little bit better because they're finally showing up in stores. Like Best Buy allowed people to come wait in line like the good old days overnight and then get a ticket in the morning to potentially buy a PS5. And one person I did not expect to be in line at Best Buy to buy a PlayStation is Mario. So a guy named JTechTV on Twitter tweeted out this picture of a guy in a full Mario costume, clearly in disguise. I have to look at it to tell you what it looks like. He's wearing like a trench coat, he's got sunglasses on, he's trying to disguise the fact that he's Mario. Like, this is something I would never really bring up in a video because normally you'd see someone in just like Levi's overalls and a red t-shirt being like, look, I'm Mario and I've got my rubber gloves on, I'm buying a PS5. But this dude went all out. Like, if I saw this Mario on my phone here walking around at Universal Studios at the new Nintendo Land that's coming here that's been open in Japan for a while, I'd be like, oh, it's covert Mario. What flower do you think you would pick up to look like this? But yeah, all jokes aside, I'm glad that the PlayStation 5 is finally showing up in stores, and I will point out that Mario did actually get a PS5. So this dude dressed up in a Mario costume, waited all night, got his ticket, and ended up buying a PS5. It's pretty cool. So as part of the EGX event in London, Jim Ryan is doing like a talk that's pre-recorded about the past, present, and future of PlayStation. It's going to be on October 7th at 9 a.m. Pacific time, or as they put it, it'll be 5 p.m. BST, which I'm gonna guess is British Standard Time. I don't know. Maybe don't roast me about that one. I'm not positive. But yeah, like I mentioned, this is a pre-recorded talk where he's going to talk about what's going on with PlayStation, which is actually very interesting because we're finally at that point where all of the games that Sean Layden, when he was the chief of PlayStation, put into production are coming out, and we're finally moving on to the era of Jim Ryan. Stuff like Horizon Forbidden West, that was definitely a Sean Layden game. God of War Ragnarok, definitely a Sean Layden game, but now we're working on stuff like Ghost of Tsushima 2 or The Last of Us Remake or whatever is going to be The Last of Us Part 2's multiplayer mode. You know, this new stuff that's kind of different than what we've seen in the PS4 generation of PlayStation, and that's pretty cool. Obviously, what I want to hear about is where they're going with the PlayStation 5. I'd love to hear updates on how they plan to get these things out of scalpers' hands and into customers' hands, how they plan to start making even more PS5s so they keep showing up in stores, because this is the most popular game console of all time at this point. And I'd also love to hear what the plans are for the PS5 Slim and the PS5 Pro, because we know they're coming. We know PlayStation really liked that whole iterative ecosystem they introduced with the PS4 and PS4 Pro. They're making it more like an iPhone upgrade, where if you really want the latest and greatest, next gen, next best thing, you can upgrade your PS5 to the PS5 Pro, or if you're just jumping into the next generation, you'll have that PS5 Slim option to just keep under your TV and get a really good gaming experience, but maybe not the best. Another thing I'm really curious about hearing from them is what they plan to do going forward with the whole PC strategy, because they've been releasing games on PC, but they've been really spacing them out, and the marketing seems really inconsistent. It doesn't seem like they have an actual plan other than to wait a couple of years after a game comes out and then try and make more money on it by selling it for just under full price again on PC. I'd love a more like dedicated strategy where they're like, all right, games going forward are going to be coming out on PS5 first, and then maybe 6 months to a year later, guaranteed you'll get to play them on PC. So then the PlayStation players, the main bread and butter of PlayStation's like operation, they get the most reward for being the biggest supporters, and then a year later they can make more money off of the PC user base that might not have a PlayStation 5. And the best thing there is it's Microsoft who loses, because they're not going to put their games on Xbox. And this is kind of weird at first, but I'm really excited to hear him talk about the past of PlayStation, because I'd like to see how his thoughts have evolved over the past year, because we all know every time Jim Ryan opens his mouth about the past of PlayStation, he seems to say something that's the opposite of what people actually want to hear. Like when he said that no one wants to play old games. Like he went back and played an old Gran Turismo game from the PS2, and he was like, why would anyone want to play this? When obviously there is a huge fan demand for backwards compatibility on the PS5. Like we know that it really comes down to how different the PS3's hardware is, and that's why you can't run those games on the PS5, but I feel like at this point they've toted their powerful console. They made this insanely beastly machine. They should figure out how to run a PS3 emulator that a bunch of kids made in their basement that runs on a PC on this bad boy right here. I mean, we all see it's dominating the Xbox, literally and I guess figuratively in sales. Well, that's literally too. So we've got a physical representation of the PlayStation's domination of the Xbox Series X. I know you guys love this, so I'm gonna point it out. I'm gonna keep doing it as long as I can hopefully this doesn't break either machine. Or else I'm gonna be missing like half a paycheck at least. And the last thing we might hear about that I'd be interested in is what the strategy is going on over in Japan. We know that they shuttered down their amazing Studio Japan, which basically worked as a shepherd for other game studios. They'd go out and say, hey, I like your idea here, come in and work on it at Studio Japan, we'll beef it up, we'll make it a bigger game than it would have been otherwise, we'll inject some money into it, and then it'll just have to be a first-party PlayStation exclusive. That is gone at this point. A lot of those workers were absorbed into Team Asobi, the people who are making the Astro games. I guarantee you they've got a full $70 Astrobot game in development right now, but I'd like to know what the plan is going forward for working with developers like From Software. I know that they have Bluepoint doing remakes and stuff like that, but I want to know if they're going to do another exclusive game with From after Elden Ring comes out. But yeah, either way, this is a rare opportunity where the CEO of PlayStation is just going to sit down and talk about his feelings on the state of gaming at this point. So I feel like regardless, you should definitely check it out, see what he has to say. I'll cover the bigger bullet points from the conversation in a video if he says anything crazy, but yeah, this is a rare opportunity, so you're probably going to want to check it out if you're a PlayStation fan. Anyway guys, that's all the PlayStation news I have for you today. Make sure you let me know what you think down in the comments below, and remember to subscribe and set your notifications to all if you haven't already. As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.